He thought he was marrying rich. Part 3. Chapter 12, Family Fiction. The invitations went out on a Friday. Cream cardstock, hand-lettered calligraphy, gold foil trim. A wedding suite so ostentatious, it practically screamed money marries money. Each invite was tucked into a silk envelope and sealed with a wax stamp bearing the couple's custom crest and intertwined E and J that looked, to Jason, like a gateway to generational wealth. But there were two special invitations that Jason never saw. Emma had them couriered directly to a small, elite agency in Los Angeles, Method and Muse, a discreet talent house that specialized in unconventional performances. They'd once staged a fake funeral for a billionaire's dog and ran emotional interventions for tabloid couples on contract. She called them with only one request. I need 2 actors. Late 50s. Middle American warmth. The kind of people who'd cry at graduations and collect Hummel figurines. Must pass as Jason Ward's long-lost parents, the ones he swore died when he was 8. The casting agent didn't flinch. Domestic or mildly evangelical? Emma smiled. Mildly evangelical. They should quote scripture. Just enough to be unsettling. The wedding week began with predictable chaos: final fittings, signature scent consultations, a minor meltdown over boutonniere shades. Jason was in peak groomzilla mode, stomping around Emma's penthouse in his monogrammed slippers and barking into his phone like he was managing a Fortune 500 company instead of choosing a napkin fold. Emma, on the other hand, was serene. Floating. Radiant with premeditated vengeance. And on Tuesday morning, as Jason munched toast in the kitchen and muttered something about chair counts, Emma said, "Oh, by the way, I found your parents." Jason froze. The toast dropped onto his plate like a stone. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. Emma smiled sweetly. "I reached out to a genealogy researcher. Just on a whim. They found your birth records. Your real ones." Jason paled. Emma continued casually. "Turns out your parents are alive. In Iowa. Living in a lovely house with hydrangeas and a Labrador named Brisket." "Cute, right?" Jason's jaw moved but made no sound. "I invited them to the wedding," Emma said, taking a sip of her green tea. "They were so excited." "Emma, wait," Jason finally said, voice rising. "That's not there's a reason I never told you. They said they hadn't spoken to you in almost a decade," she went on, smoothly. "They've missed you. They're just thrilled you found love." Jason looked like he'd just been told his tuxedo was woven from live snakes. "I need a minute," he muttered, pushing back from the table. Emma tilted her head. "Of course. Take 2. That night, Jason disappeared for hours. No texts. No updates. When he returned, he smelled like stress sweat and car freshener. "I don't think it's a good idea," he said abruptly. "Inviting them. We're not close. And my childhood was traumatic, you know that." Emma nodded slowly. "So you made up their death certificates?" Jason flinched. "What? I'm not mad," she said softly, almost kindly. "You were hurting. You wanted a clean start. I get it." He studied her for a long moment. Then gave the barest nod. "Exactly," he said, relieved. "That's all it was." Emma reached across the table, touched his hand. "They're still coming. Wedding day. Sunlit vineyard. Strings of twinkling lights. Coordinated florals." The air was thick with anticipation, and even thicker with secrets. The guests arrived in waves: influencers, socialites, family, fake friends. And then, just before the ceremony, a silver town car pulled up. Out stepped a wholesome couple in Sunday best, the father in a tailored tan suit, the mother in floral chiffon and pearls. They clutched their hands nervously, blinking at the crowd like polite deer. Jason spotted them. His blood drained instantly. Emma watched from behind a floral arch as his face contorted: fear, rage, calculation all crashing together at once. She leaned into Vanessa, who stood beside her in a crimson gown. They rehearsed the backstory, Emma whispered. Churchgoers. 2 sons. They even memorized the fake childhood dog's name. Vanessa chuckled. What's the safe word if they start quoting Corinthians? Pineapple. Jason stumbled toward the couple. Mom, he stammered, voice high and cracking. The woman smiled warmly. Oh, honey. You look so handsome. Jason's eyes darted everywhere. Emma, the guests, the photographers, the guests' phones. This wasn't private. This was public. And worse, documented. Emma stood poised at the top of the steps, bouquet in hand, veil billowing like smoke. Their eyes met. She winked. Jason knew, in that moment, he'd lost control of the narrative. Chapter 13, The Dress Rehearsal. The day before the wedding was all about illusion. Perfectly staged moments, borrowed emotions, staged sincerity, all wrapped in the kind of curated chaos that wedding planners label charming. The vineyard glowed under the late afternoon sun, drenched in golden light and optimism. White chairs were lined up like dominoes. Pale blush petals had been hand-scattered along the aisle by a floral experience director who charged $900 an hour. Harpists tuned. Drones buzzed overhead for cinematic angles. Jason arrived late, blaming calls with the wine vendor. His shirt was half untucked, his jaw tight. He hadn't spoken to Emma since the parents' incident, and the last text she'd sent him was a single line. They're staying for the reception. He'd replied with, "We need to talk." But Emma had simply heart-reacted the message. Now she stood at the top of the aisle in a silk rehearsal gown, ivory, understated, but deliberate. Around her swirled planners, assistants, a makeup artist with blotting sheets, and a stylist armed with pins. She was the centerpiece of the whole production. And she was on the verge of laughing so hard she thought she might choke on her own veil. Jason stood near the altar, brow furrowed, flipping through a note card labeled Vow Concepts. He looked tense, his usual cool dissolving into a manic sort of twitchy charm, the smile he wore too long, the laugh that came too late. "Are we ready for a run-through of the vows?" the planner chirped. Emma inhaled deeply, forcing the tremble into her shoulders. She clutched the edge of her skirt and let her chin wobble just enough. She said, voice breaking perfectly on cue. "I didn't think I'd be this emotional." Jason rushed over, hand out, performative and slightly breathless. Hey, don't cry," he whispered. "You'll ruin the makeup." Emma sniffed, covering her mouth like a woman overcome with joy. Inside, she was practically howling. She wasn't crying because of love. She was laughing because of the sheer absurdity of it all, the lies, the act, the fact that he thought this was real. Jason, who stood there whispering sweet nothings into her ear, completely unaware that his entire financial future had already been siphoned into a trust fund labeled Fool's Gold _01. Jason, who still thought he'd be sipping champagne on a yacht in Dubai next week. Jason, who didn't realize that even his vows had been preemptively rewritten by Emma and Chloe, just in case he tried to improvise something sentimental at the altar. And now here he was, looking at her like she was the greatest thing that had ever happened to him, because in his mind, she was a meal ticket, a pretty little mark wrapped in couture. Emma let a single tear fall. Jason wiped it with his thumb. "I love you," he said, just a little too loudly, so the photographer could hear. She nodded. Bit her lip. "I love you too," she whispered. God, the lies were beautiful. The planner clapped. "Stunning. Let's reset for the final procession." As Jason turned away to adjust his boutonniere, Emma leaned toward Vanessa, standing just off to the side in a fitted black rehearsal dress, pretending to check notes. "Do I look like I'm breaking down?" Emma asked under her breath. Vanessa didn't look up. "You look like a woman on the edge of a psychotic break, but in a couture way." "Perfect," Emma murmured. "That's the look I was going for." They did the walk again. And again. Jason kept messing up his pacing. Emma, on the other hand, hit every mark. Smiled just enough. Paused just enough. Looked lovingly just long enough. And every time she turned her back, she smirked. Because by this time tomorrow, she wouldn't be walking down the aisle toward a wedding. She'd be walking away from a con. And Jason? He'd never even see it coming. Chapter 14, Prenup Panic. The morning before the wedding was quiet, too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, like in a spa commercial with soft flute music and herbal tea. No, this was the kind of quiet that comes right before a controlled detonation. Emma sat at the breakfast nook of her suite, robe tied in a perfect bow, gazing out at the sun-drenched hills beyond the vineyard estate. Her tablet sat on the table beside her, displaying the prenup draft in grayscale. Jason still hadn't signed it. And she knew why. The last time she'd mentioned the document slipped into conversation between "Do you prefer dove gray or pearl white for the escort cards?" and "Did your groomsmen finally get fitted?" He'd changed the subject so fast she nearly got whiplash. Now he was stalling. Dodging. Calculating. Because Jason thought he was about to win. The knock came at 9:12 a.m. Jason, in sweatpants and a suspiciously tight Henley, stood in the doorway with 2 coffees in hand and a carefully constructed look of mild concern. "Can we talk?" he asked. Emma nodded, gesturing for him to come in. He handed her a latte, kissed her forehead, and perched across from her like a man about to negotiate a hostage situation. "So," he said, eyes darting to the tablet. "I saw you updated the prenup." Emma sipped her coffee. "Just the standard clauses. A few trusts. Inheritance protection. The usual." Jason laughed nervously. Yeah. Totally. It's just, you know how I feel about paperwork." "How do you feel?" she asked, tilting her head. He paused. "I mean, it's just so transactional. We're about to commit to forever. Do we need a contract for love?" Emma blinked. "Jason, my family has contracts for book club." He smiled that overly boyish grin he weaponized when backed into a corner. "Right," he said. "It's just. I didn't think we'd be that kind of couple. I want to trust you. And I hope you trust me." Emma leaned forward, placed her hand on his. "You're right." Jason perked up. "I am. Of course," she said, her voice gentle, warm like a fresh bath drawn for a man about to be drowned in it. "I don't want anything to get in the way of tomorrow. Let's take it out." Jason blinked. "The prenup?" She nodded. "If it makes you feel like I'm protecting myself from you, then what's the point?" His relief was immediate, shoulders relaxing, smile widening, fingers tightening over hers just enough to be irritating. "I knew I could count on you," he said. "You're not like the others." Emma squeezed back. "Oh, Jason. I am exactly like the others. The ones who saw through you. The ones who left. You just think you're the first one to survive me." That afternoon, she met with her lawyer in private. "Leave the prenup in place," she said coolly. "Exactly as written. No revisions." The attorney hesitated. "But he thinks it's been removed." Emma smiled. "He thinks a lot of things. And if he tries to contest it later?" Emma stood, smoothing her dress. "He won't. Because by the time he realizes, the bank accounts will be empty, the assets frozen, and he'll be too busy Googling how to flee a country without a passport to worry about legal semantics." The lawyer nodded. "And the backup version? Signed. Notarized. Secured in 3 places." That night, Jason waltzed into the rehearsal dinner like a man who believed he'd dodged a bullet. He made a toast about love without limits and not needing contracts when you have chemistry. The guests applauded. Someone cried. He kissed Emma's hand in front of everyone and whispered, "You're my forever." Emma laughed. Because the next time Jason read the word forever, it would be in section 8.3 of the binding prenuptial agreement. And he wouldn't be smiling then. Chapter 15, the countdown begins. 7 days. That's all that stood between Jason and what he believed was a ticket to luxury, legacy, and lifelong access to Emma Langford's fortune. He was practically vibrating with anticipation. Emma could see it in everything: the way he triple-checked the guest list for the reception, how he started signing emails as Jason Langford, and how he casually mentioned yacht listings on Zillow, like they were talking about a new toaster. He thought he was coasting toward a soft landing. He didn't know the runway had been soaked in gasoline. The bridal brunch was Emma's final public act. One last innocent, pastel-laced charade before everything began to collapse elegantly, of course. The invitations read, brunch and bubbly for the bride-to-be. Garden party attire. Secrets optional. Hosted by Emma Langford. RSVP required. It was held on the terrace of a luxury garden estate in Calistoga. Cream tablecloths, blush peonies, personalized macarons that spelled out love is rich in edible gold. Live acoustic music floated through the air, and custom cocktails with names like the Blush Trap and the Billionaire's Mule made their rounds. The photographers circled like discreet hawks, capturing every angle of the picture-perfect bride-to-be, radiant in white silk, her hair in soft waves, her smile effortless. She made a toast, of course. Something about love, growth, destiny. But her real focus wasn't on the bridesmaids or the champagne or the way Jason had posted only 1 week left, my queen, on Instagram that morning. No. Her focus was on the staff. Specifically, the woman carrying the mimosa tray. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and apron, hair tucked under a cap, eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses. Vanessa. The caterer. She floated between tables, serving drinks and collecting gossip like a social espionage machine. Vanessa had memorized the floor plan, the guest list, and the identities of every bridesmaid and second cousin. She wasn't just there to play housekeeper, she was there to listen. Jason had a pattern: he never lied, only once. He layered. He built. He couldn't help himself. The closer they got to the wedding, the more emboldened he became. Which is why, when Jason showed up toward the end of the brunch, just passing through, and pulled one of Emma's bridesmaids aside, Vanessa was close enough to catch the entire conversation while refilling flutes. "Hey, so, funny thing," Jason said, voice lowered to a confidential murmur. "Emma and I are probably going to do a little extended honeymoon." "Like, really extended?" The bridesmaid giggled. "Like how long?" Jason smiled like a man who'd won. 6 months. Maybe more. Private travel, totally off-grid. Not even Emma knows yet. Gonna surprise her." Vanessa didn't blink. She kept pouring, kept smiling. But the second she returned to the kitchen staging area, she pulled out her phone and sent a single text to Emma. 6-month vanishing act? Confirmed. Dubai's not the endgame. He's stalling post-wedding. Emma, still seated in her peony throne and mid-photo op with her cousin from Milan, glanced at her phone. Her smile didn't waver. She texted back. "We let him pack. Then we bury him in it." The rest of the brunch went off without a hitch. Jason kissed her temple in front of the guests. Emma fed him a macaron for the cameras. The harpist played Can't Help Falling in Love, and someone cried softly near the rose bushes. It was all so romantic. So idyllic. So doomed. By sunset, the guests were gone. The estate was quiet again. Emma sat with Vanessa on a marble bench under a canopy of wisteria, both sipping the last of the lavender champagne. 1 week, Vanessa said, watching the horizon burn. Emma nodded. "Everything's in place." Vanessa smiled. "I've waited a long time to watch a man unravel in real time." Emma leaned her head back. "He's going to think it's the happiest day of his life," she murmured. Vanessa clinked her glass to Emma's. "And then we take it away." The clock was ticking. 7 days left. The mask was still on, but the eyes beneath it were already smiling. Chapter 16, The Burner Phone. The burner phone was black, cheap, and discreet, the kind of disposable model sold behind gas station counters and used by people with something to hide. Vanessa found it on a Monday, during her routine visit to Jason's apartment. She wasn't supposed to be there, technically. But she still had a key from when they were dating, and Jason, ever the narcissist, never changed his locks. He probably thought no one would dare come back once they'd had the privilege of leaving. She let herself in at 9:03 a.m., wearing latex gloves and a perfect alibi. Jason was at a final groomsman fitting, which Emma had scheduled on purpose to keep him busy and distracted. While he was arguing over pocket square shades in Midtown, Vanessa was slipping into his closet and rifling through his sock drawer. She found it under a pair of Calvin Klein briefs, wrapped in an old t-shirt that still smelled faintly of stale cologne and audacity. It was powered off. No password. Classic. She turned it on. 2 missed calls. 4 texts. And 1 recent outbound call that had lasted 13 minutes to a number registered in the Cayman Islands. She didn't listen to the voicemails. Not right away. She took photos of everything, the call log, the contact list, all in code names, and the banking app Jason clearly thought no one would ever find. Then she powered it down, rewrapped it, and placed it right back where she'd found it undisturbed. Emma was waiting when she returned. Vanessa uploaded everything to the encrypted shared folder they'd been building since the beginning, titled simply, Exit Strategy. The contents were damning. The texts were short but telling. Funds will be ready within 48 hours. Dubai suite booked. New name secured. Post-wedding exit. No trace. And 1 audio file. A voicemail. Vanessa played it on speaker as Emma listened with arms folded. Mr. Langston, as per your instructions, we're moving the wire. Offshore account ending in 47. Funds from the joint account will post by midnight. You'll have full access under the alias. Please destroy this message after listening. There was a long pause. Then Emma laughed. Let him, she said calmly. Vanessa raised a brow. You sure? Emma nodded. I want him to think he has it. Let him pack his fake passport, let him fantasize about yachts and tax shelters. Let him believe he beat the system. Vanessa grinned. And when he logs in? Emma's eyes gleamed. He'll find $47. And a donation receipt from a goat sanctuary in Oregon. The thing Jason didn't know was this. Emma had been tracing his digital fingerprints since the day he proposed. Every account he opened, every name he whispered into burner lines, every shady call made from hotel Wi-Fi, it was all rerouted. Ghost copied. Synced into a custom tracking app Chloe's ex had built just for fun and revenge. Jason thought he was clever. That he was siphoning cash into his shiny new life. But all the while, Emma had been bleeding the source dry, redirecting transfers, and slowly laundering the trail so clean even the IRS would be impressed. Jason wasn't moving money. He was feeding a system she built. Later that night, Jason pulled Emma into his arms as they lay in bed. You're so calm, he murmured. Can't believe it's all happening. She smiled in the dark. Neither can I. He kissed her shoulder. I love you, you know. Emma turned to him, brushing his hair back. I know. He closed his eyes, breathing deep, dreaming, no doubt, of escape routes and foreign banks and champagne breakfasts far from consequence. Emma lay beside him, wide awake. Tomorrow, the final transfer would go through. And it would be the last time Jason Ward would ever touch her money. Chapter 17, Dress Fitting Disaster. 4 days before the wedding. The gown was supposed to be the moment. The reveal. The dreamy, tearful, gasp-inducing, camera-flashing moment where the bride walks out of the dressing room and the world goes still. And for Emma, it was. Just not for the reasons Jason expected. The original dress was custom. A breathtaking silk organza masterpiece from Maison Cinq in Paris. Hand-sewn crystals. Layered ivory tulle. A train so long it needed its own assistant. She had flown in twice for fittings. It had its own garment bag, its own climate-controlled storage unit, its own insurance policy. Jason had called it ridiculous. Then worth it. Then, just last week, hot. So imagine her surprise when she unzipped the bag at the final fitting and found, not the Maison sink. This dress was white, sure. But that was where the similarity ended. No beading. No hand-stitched lace. No delicate French veil. This dress was wrinkled polyester. The kind you buy off rack at a department store when your cousin forgets her bridesmaid gown and you have 15 minutes to improvise. For a full 10 seconds, Emma simply stared. Then she reached inside the bag again, slowly, methodically, as if there must be a mistake, as if her dress was playing hide and seek. But there it was, on the hanger, fully zipped, with a plastic tag that read, "Bridal value, $389.99, final sale." Emma blinked. Then she smiled. She didn't scream. Didn't call the atelier. Didn't storm into Jason's condo demanding answers. Instead, she called Vanessa. "You have the red dress, right?" she asked. Vanessa paused. "You mean the red dress? The one you wore to that senator's divorce party? With the slit and the revenge neckline?" Vanessa exhaled. "I do. Dry cleaned and hanging in my closet." Emma smiled into the phone. "Good. Bring it." Jason had no idea what he'd done. He thought she wouldn't notice. Or maybe he thought she'd be too embarrassed to speak up. Either way, it was a petty, calculated move. He hadn't been able to access her money anymore. Not since the account mysteriously stopped responding to his withdrawals. So he tried to control something else. Something that would hurt just enough to make him feel powerful again. Emma's dress. Her moment. But she wasn't going to cry about it. She was going to weaponize it. The day of the final walkthrough at the venue, Emma arrived late fashionably, of course. Everyone was waiting, Jason, the wedding planner, the photographer, and 24 vendors. He turned, ready to greet her in that fake saint tone he used when pretending to forgive her for being 5 minutes late. But then she walked in. Wearing the red dress. Scarlet silk. Corset bodice. Thigh-high slit. Backless. Sharp. The color of seduction, war, and absolute control. The room fell silent. Jason's mouth opened but no sound came out. Emma walked straight toward him, heels echoing like gunfire across marble floors. "This isn't the gown," he said, voice shrill beneath the surface. Emma blinked innocently. "No? It's the one I wanted. But it's not white," he said stupidly. "I'm not feeling very white today," she said, brushing past him. Vanessa, standing by the catering table, lifted her glass and winked. Later, as they stood alone near the altar platform, Jason hissed, "What was that?" Emma tilted her head. "You tell me." Jason looked genuinely confused. Or maybe just scared. "I just wanted to make sure you weren't blowing money on a dress you'd wear once." Emma's smile was the kind that came right before an execution. "You'll be amazed how much damage a single dress can do," she said sweetly. Jason said nothing. He didn't realize this moment wasn't about fabric. It was about narrative. She'd already rewritten the ending. And tomorrow? She was going to wear white. Not because she was the bride. But because she was the storm that came dressed as one.
In a world of secrets, power, and broken hearts, one click could change everything. Like what you just watched. Then like, subscribe, and ring that bell, or risk missing the next scandal. Drop a comment below, we're always watching. Billionaires and family drama, where love is rare, but drama is guaranteed.